So, just a couple weeks back, Zack Snyder dropped the Rebel Moon director's cuts on Netflix, and I figured it would be a good time with those released to talk about Zack Snyder's entire filmography. I have seen every single movie released by him and multiple cuts, therefore, of. And so, yeah, let's get into this ranking. If you guys are new here, I'm Mike. Welcome or welcome back to the channel. And today, like I said, we're going to be talking about Zack Snyder's films. We're going to be ranking them from worst to best. And this is also going to include the theatrical cut of Batman vs. Superman. And it's also going to have the director's cuts and the Netflix PG-13 cuts of the Rebel Moon films. So, with that said, let's get started with number 14. And easily in last place, I guess we can talk about 14 and 13 together. It's going to be Rebel Moon, The Scargiver, and Rebel Moon Child of Fire. Now, Child of Fire, when I first saw it, I thought it was fine. I didn't really think anything of it. I just thought it was really disappointing because from Zack Snyder's, repertoire about this movie, it was supposed to be, this project that he's been working on since he was in film school and whatnot. And it just seemed like a really cool story. And the fact that it was brought up as a Star Wars story, and like given as a pitch for like a Star Wars movie, I thought that was kind of cool. And that it was supposed to be like setting up the genre almost. And then these theatrical cuts, or not theatrical, but PG-13 cuts, were so disappointing. From just the sheer amount of CGI put into the movie, or not CGI, slow mo put into the movie. There's plenty of CGI. There's just the sheer amount of slow mo put into the film is so unnecessary. And Zack Snyder is known for having slow mo, but man, in these PG-13 cuts, this is crazy of the amount of these that are there. So yeah, slow mo is obnoxious. Some of the shots look really rough in this one. There's little to no gore, and part of Zack Snyder's movies that kind of make them entertaining is the gore, the gratuitous gore. And there's nothing gratuitous about this movie. It really is just a generic, like, sci-fi movie following the story of Seven Samurai, Bug's Life, The Magnificent Seven, like all of just these like classic stories is just like another one of these, and it's supposed to be like, you know, this send up of the genre. Definitely wasn't those. It definitely wasn't that. So, yeah. In last place is the PG-13 cuts of the Rebel Moon movies. Pretty big jump between these two, but in 12th place, I have Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole. Now, this is a weird one to talk about because, on one hand, it's really well animated, and to just speak about it as an animated movie, this is Zack Snyder's only animated film, which is weird. And it's a movie with talking animals that was made for kids. It's rated PG, which is not Zack Snyder's style, and also it's like pretty violent, and it's rated PG. Weird. It's really weird. Either way, though, this story is really strange. Never could really get into it, honestly. The characters were kind of annoying. Uh, I really don't remember a whole lot about this one, if I'm being honest, so pretty forgettable. So, yeah, comes in at number 12. Coming in at number 11 is Batman vs. Superman, the theatrical cut. Now, this is a movie that I did see in the theaters, and I was massively disappointed. I have not seen the theatrical cut since then because the ultimate cut is superior in every single way. I just, when I saw it, it just like didn't have anything that was intriguing to me. The action was like little to none until like the last 45 minutes. Uh, I mean, Zack Snyder like added 30 minutes that basically added the entire point of what Batman wanted and what Superman's goals were and whatnot. Is like took out so many things from the Ultimate Edition. It's just really baffling to me that they really cut out so much of what made this movie actually work. So yeah, the theatrical cut, it comes in at number 11. It was a huge disappointment in the theaters, and I have refused to watch it since then. Number 10 is Sucker Punch, a movie that everybody loves to dog on and just say it is, like Zack Snyder's wet dream, basically. And I won't deny it is pretty much Zack Snyder's wet dream. It's basically Zack Snyder doing everything that was, Zack Snyder's signature. There's like it's like a period piece almost, and then it jumps into like this girl's dream, and there's mech suits fighting each other, there's magical creatures, uh like tons of slow-mo, CGI, green screen, everything that is signature to a Zack Snyder movie. But does that mean it's good? No. It does not mean it's good. This movie is a mess. It is pretty sloppily written. It is pretty dull in terms of the characters. Some of the CGI does not really hold up at all, but I will say it's pretty cool to look at. If you look any deeper, if you dive any deeper into this movie, you're gonna get absolutely nothing out of this movie. So, comes in at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is going to be Rebel Moon Curse of Forgiveness. So this is Rebel Moon Chapter 2 or Part 2, the director's cut. So Curse of Forgiveness is actually a really cool title because it's a pretty significant plot point in the movie that the main character was forgiven by someone who she killed and has this, kind of lingering curse on her that just, she is forgiven for committing homicide, which she shouldn't have because it basically started an intergalactic war. But yeah, it's a pretty cool title. I like it. In terms of this one, kind of has the same issues as the original Chapter 2, except it's not boring. It's not boring. There's a ton of action in this one. Uh, the CGI, green screen, and slow mo is actually not obnoxious like it was in Scargiver, and yeah, the gore is top notch in this as well. I will say though, this one has some really, really unnecessary scenes added into it, where there's like this whole like subplot about like these Ravagers that lasts like 2 minutes, and Jimmy the robot goes and just like slaughters them behind a rock, and it is the weirdest little add-on in the movie. But yeah, it's actually a pretty solid movie. It's a little overly long, I will say, but I do really enjoy Curse of Forgiveness. I think it's a pretty solid movie. So yeah, comes in at number 9. Number 8 is a movie that took me a while to come around to, but I really enjoyed it on my rewatch, and that is Army of the Dead. Now, this one from the trailers looked like a ton of fun, and basically it's Ocean's 11 but Zack Snyder and zombies. So, if you didn't know, Zack Snyder's original film was a zombie film, and we'll get to that later. But Army of the Dead kind of felt like Zack Snyder going back to the zombie subgenre, and I thought that was a really cool idea. And I did not really enjoy it the first time around. I thought it was really boring. I thought it was too long, and I just thought the performances were really dull, the characters were really dull. But on my rewatch, I actually thought the opposite. I thought it was pretty well paced. It's still a little overly long, a little overstuffed, but I thought the characters were really fun, and I actually thought it was pretty well written, pretty well shot. So yeah, comes in at number 8 for me. I think it's a really fun time. Coming in at number 7 is probably the biggest surprise on this list, and that's actually going to be Rebel Moon, Part 1, The Chalice of Blood, which is the director's cut of Part 1. And this one surprised the hell out of me because this movie is 3.5 hours long. And boy, I was not ready to sit through this one, and I was like, oh god, please be good, because I really wanted these director's cuts to be good, and it was actually really freaking good. I dug the hell out of Chalice of Blood. I thought it was a blast. It's it's 3 hours, 3.5 hours long. It's a little overly long, but once you get just like the deeper, like once you get the deeper context into everything that's going on with the story, it's the same story as the PG-13 cuts, which I mean it's a generic story, but once you get like the deeper context and how it's kind of just like setting up the genre and kind of, you know, satirizing it almost, it is actually a lot of fun. The characters are all actually like really well developed in this one. There's a whole 20-minute cold open that was cut out of the PG-13 cut, which is awesome. And like one of the best scenes that Zack Snyder's ever made, honestly. And yeah, add some blood into it, add some really, really, really gratuitous sex scenes into it, and you get you get a pure Zack Snyder experience, and it is a blast of a movie. So yeah, Rebel Moon: Chalice of Blood is at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is going to be Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake. Now, like I said, this was his first movie. His first film was a zombie film and was also written by James Gunn. So you have two of the big heads of DC that made this film, which is really bonkers, but also kind of cool at the same time. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I've seen this, I want to say like 2 or 3 times, and it didn't work for me quite as well the second time, but I do really want to go back and revisit it just because I think in the director's cut there's this added scene where there's like a something to do with childbirth and the baby gets infected somehow, and it is one of the most vile scenes I've ever seen in a film that legitimately makes me want to puke. And that's why I don't quite love it as much as some people do, and why I don't have it higher on the list. But maybe after another rewatch, it might go up higher. I don't know. But this film is insanely well made for a first film. The way it's shot, the first 20 minutes being almost like a one take, where basically there's like the whole shot where it's like a 360 around a car, and you're watching it drive through this neighborhood that is being like, it's like getting taken over by the apocalypse. It is a insanely well directed sequence and so intense. The first 20 minutes are so intense, and the rest of it is a blast. Like once they get to the mall, it's a ton of fun. The characters are all memorable. Some of them aren't likable, but that's what makes them memorable. Mekhi Phifer, I believe, is the guy who, you know, is the main unlikable character. Very memorable character. I think he's a terrible person, but he is a greatly well written character. So yeah, he's not even like the main character. So yeah, it makes him memorable, and makes this movie memorable. So yeah, comes in at number 6. Coming in at number 5, we have the Batman vs Superman Ultimate Edition. Now, the Ultimate Edition is way up higher on the list than the theatrical cut, and that should show how much better it is with that added extra 30 minutes. I love the Ultimate Cut. The Ultimate Cut. I think it is super good. I think it's superbly made, super well written. Honestly, even as a film that is kind of rushed into production because it wasn't supposed to be Man of Steel and then it was supposed to get Batman vs Superman. You were supposed to just have Man of Steel be like a one-off thing, and then it started like the whole the DC universe, which should have had a Batman movie like in there somewhere. But yeah, you know, you have Batman versus Superman being the second film in your universe. Not Zack Snyder's fault, but you know, still made a great film, in my opinion, at least. I know some people will really not like this movie. I think it's great. Anywho, I love the Batman in this film. I think Ben Affleck is probably my all-time favorite Batman performance. I think him kind of being like the Dark Knight Returns version of Batman, being like kind of just like a depressed lunatic almost, trying to be a vigilante. And so many people have died in his life. You know, Robin has died. Um, his I don't remember who it was that dies in the building that's like in the flashback to Man of Steel, but they die. He goes after revenge and he wants to kill Superman. And I think it's a really cool story, just building up to this fight that ends up being like a, like a generic, like superheroes team up kind of thing at the end. It's like they find common ground and face the common enemy. Like it's kind of a generic kind of story, but I like it in this one. I like it in this one, man. I don't know. I think it's fun. Anywho, yeah, I think this movie is fucking great. So yeah, comes in at number 5 for me, the Ultimate Edition at least. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Zack Snyder's 300, which is an adaptation from a graphic novel about basically just gladiators, dudes being dudes, and it is awesome. I love this movie. It's great. I've seen it like 2 times, and it's been a hot minute, but it is a memorable movie. I mean, every action sequence is awesome. Just dudes oiled up, taking down Persians, and it is awesome. I love 300. The Spartans rule. This is Sparta. This movie rules. Yeah. Number 4. Coming in at number 3 is Man of Steel, aka Masterpiece of Steel. I adore Man of Steel. This is not a perfect movie. I wouldn't say it's a perfect movie. I think it has some flaws, specifically with being a little bit like sappy melodrama with Amy Adams. I don't think she's very good in this movie, but everything else I adore. This was the movie that made me a Superman fan. As you can see, I have a Superman black suit Funko Pop right here because before I had seen Man of Steel, I kind of hated the character of Superman. I just thought he was overpowered, kind of just boring. And then I saw this, and he was human. They Zack Snyder humanized Superman, made him grounded, and have the conflict of whether or not he should show his powers to the real world and allow these people to just like you know experiment on him or try to capture him. They didn't like if he doesn't think the world is ready for this. And yeah, I think it's great. Really great, moral confliction. And also Michael Shannon as Zod is incredible. I love him as General Zod. I think he's a fantastic villain. Um, yeah, comes in at number 3 for me. So it only gets better from here. So as if Man of Steel, even though I call it a masterpiece, is at number 3. And you guys probably, by the process of elimination, know what's at 1 and 2. But number 2 for me is another graphic novel adaptation from DC, but not in like the DC canon, not attached to Batman and Superman. Watchmen, one of my all-time favorite books that was adapted into a movie. I'm talking about the director's cut. The director's cut is perfect. I think it is a legitimately perfect film. Flawless. Zack Snyder made a film that was based on a book that prior to this movie was unadaptable. And he made it perfectly. Captured what made the graphic novel so good and made a film that I honestly prefer over the book. I think Zack Snyder's way of visualizing the novel is so unique, and it's bleak, it's wild, it's brutal, but it is enthralling and such a well-made comic book film. story about superheroes who have gone underground and are slowly being picked off one by some serial killer, and is trying to be they're trying to figure out who it is. And it is a really, really great film. I absolutely love Watchmen, so it comes in at number two. Also, I've not seen the ultimate cut. I've heard it's basically just like added in animated segments, and I'm just like, I don't need to see that. That's like a half hour longer. So, yeah. Theatrical cut's great, though. I love the theatrical cut as well. But yeah, the director's cut comes in at number two. And coming in at number one is a legitimately flawless film that I cannot nitpick to save my life. Zack Snyder's 4-hour magnum opus, Zack Snyder's Justice League. I love this film. Maybe I can. Okay, I lied about I can't nitpick. I think there's a couple things you could have taken out. One, the over amount of just like, well, not the over amount, the little bit where the chicks come out of the water and are singing could be taken out. It's a little weird. And also the epilogue kind of just extends the movie a little bit too long, but like I think it's still really cool. It's just like what could have been if Zack Snyder continued on. And I get people want to restore the Snyderverse. Don't, don't. It's dead. Leave it dead. Let him move on. That's my 2 cents. But this film adds on to the character work of Batman and Batman vs Superman and makes him so likable, makes him, you know, redeemable. And after he basically got Superman killed, he makes a promise to defend the world from what's coming. You know, something's bad's coming because of his visions, like the nightmare sequences and whatnot. And brings together a band of superheroes that are, some are reluctant, some are wanting to be there, and they come together, resurrect Superman, save the day. And it is such a great film. I've seen it 4 times all the way through, and I still cannot get over the fact this film is so damn good. So yeah, it comes in at number one for me. Might be a little long, might have some unnecessary sequences in there, but it's perfect. For me at least. It's what I want out of a Zack Snyder Justice League film. So yeah, it comes in at number one. Well, let me know your guys' ranking of Zack Snyder's films, and let me know, what do you think of his films as a whole? What is your favorite? And yeah, if you guys like this video, make sure to like, and if you're new here, subscribe to the channel as well. And I'll see you guys next time. So peace out, everybody.